All right, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to find the domain of a given function such as this one up here. F of x is equal to x square root of x squared minus x minus 12. So we got this quadratic expression inside the radical. So what we got to figure out is what are our potential or possible x values that can be used in this function. One thing we have to understand is we can't take the square root of a negative value. That's impossible. So whatever this comes out to, okay, the radicand, the information underneath the square root symbol cannot be negative. So it has to be greater than or equal to 0. So what we're going to want to do is set that up. So we're going to have to say x squared minus x minus 12. This is our radicand. That's the information underneath the square root symbol. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to first factor, right? Find our roots, just like we would any other quadratic. I'm looking at x squared minus x minus 12, x squared minus x minus 12. Okay, we're gonna find our roots, so we could split that up into two binomials. We're factoring this apart, x and x. Two numbers that multiply together to make negative 12, but add together to make negative 1. Okay, that'd be a negative 4 and a positive 3. So we're going to use these two numbers. These are our roots. We now know our roots are what number minus 4 would give me 0. So 4. And the other one's going to be what number plus 3 would give you 0, negative 3. So negative 3. There's our two roots, okay, for this function. Now that we know our roots, we're going to use this information here to help us determine, is the domain in between these two values? So 4 to negative 3, is it all the information inside, or is it the information outside? So the way we do that is we pick a number inside, in the middle. So we're going to take a number from the middle, we're going to plug it into this, hoping that it gives us a value greater than or equal to 0. That will tell us that it's on the inside. So a number between 4 and negative 3, let's just go with 1. 1 falls in between, remember, number line. Here's negative 3, 0 is right there, 4 would be over here. We just pick a number somewhere in the middle, let's go with 1. Okay, so I'm gonna plug 1 in right here and see if it comes out as greater than or equal to 0. If it does, then we know our information, our domain that we're looking for is gonna be all numbers between 4 and negative 3. So let's find out. Plugging 1 in, squared minus x, which is 1, minus 12. And we're going to hope that's greater than or equal to 0. So we check the middle first. 1 squared is 1, minus 12, greater than or equal to 0. 1 minus 1 is negative 2, minus 12 takes me to negative 14, which is not greater than or equal to 0. So this fails. This is a fail. So right now what I'm trying to get to is, here's our x values, here's our y values. When we go to graph this, right now our roots, our 2 points where this is going to hit the x-axis, are at 4 and negative 3. Okay, so we know we got information on the x-axis because those are our roots. But to find the domain, we plugged information inside those. So we picked 1, right about there, plugged it in, it did not work, it failed. So 1 is not part of our domain. It will not work because we'll get a negative value, and you can't take the square root of a negative value. Okay, so now that we've checked a number in between these two values, it's time for us to check some numbers outside of those values. So we're going to go 1 to the right or 1 to the left. So what's 1 to the right of 4? Well, 1 to the right of 4 would be 5. Notice now I'm picking outside numbers. I already picked my number inside, which was 1. It failed, so it's not information in between these two dots. Maybe it's information outside of those dots. So 5 is 1 to the right. 1 to the left of negative 3 would be negative 4. So now we're going to plug negative 4 and 5 in. We're going to check each one of those. So first let's just write the numbers down. Negative 4 and 5. This is checking the outside of our roots. So let's start with negative 4. Square x minus 12 is supposed to be greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to put negative 4 in. I'm going to square that and get 16. A negative times negative makes a positive. Negative 4 also goes in here. Now we're subtracting a negative, which is really adding 4, minus 12, hoping it's greater than or equal to 0. 16 plus 4 gives me 20, minus 12 leaves me with 8, which is greater than or equal to 0. It checks. So this is a pass. So we know information to the right of 4 is going to work. Those values to the right of 4, greater than or equal to 4, works in this function as x values. Okay, let's check and make sure. Oh, sorry. Negative 4. Sorry, to the left. Information to the left works. We haven't checked 5 yet. So we're going to find out if that works by plugging 5 in here and working this out. We can just erase here, here, here. That's the only information that's going to change. We're going to replace that with a 5 now. Now we're checking to the right of our root 4. So 5 squared is 25, minus 5 gives me 20, minus 12, which also gives me 8. 8 is greater than or equal to 0. So information to the right, information to the left. Any values to the left of negative 3 to the right of 4 will work. So how do we give our answer as a domain? Okay, to the right of 4, to the left of negative 3. So our domain is going to be given. You can write it out a couple of ways. What are possible values for x that can be plugged into this function? X can be less than or equal to negative 3, numbers to the left of it, less than or equal to negative 3, or x can be greater than or equal to 4, numbers to the right of 4, to the left of 3. This is one way to give it as an answer. Another way you can give it as an answer is interval notation. Interval notation is going to be like negative infinity. That's basically saying to the left of negative 3, we're going as far to the left as we can, which is negative infinity, all the way to negative 3, which is where we stop. Over here on the other side, you're going to be saying stopping at 4 and going all the way to positive infinity. This is how you would give it in interval notation. These two things are saying the exact same information, just in different notations. Interval notation, standard notation using inequalities. Okay, so for this function, because we know the square root cannot be taken of a negative value, we start by saying this has got to be greater than or equal to 0. Use that information, find your roots. This is a quadratic, so you can factor it to find your roots. Once you found your roots, pick information in between those two values, 4 and negative 3. Remember, we chose 1. We plugged a 1 in to see if 1 worked. It did not. It was a fail. That's why you see no information in between 4 and negative 3. 1 would not produce any information. It's undoable. Okay? However, when we go to the left of negative 3, all numbers smaller than negative 3 would work in this function. All numbers greater than 4 would also work in this function. And that is how you find the domain of a function such as the one given here. Hopefully this makes sense. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.